Okay, welcome everyone to the Canarian International Meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. My name is Mossy and I am an alcoholic.
And my name is Mick, and I am serving as your secretary today with Mossy. Please join me for a few moments silence to remember with the still suffering alcoholic both inside and outside this meeting.
And Barney is going to read the preamble for us.
Thank you, Mossy. My name's Barney. I'm an alcoholic. A preamble. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is an honest desire to stop drinking. AA has no dues or fees. It is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution. Does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help our alcoholics to achieve sobriety. Thank you.
And the chat is now disabled until the end of the meeting. As you know, guys, this is an old-timers meeting. And we go straight into it. We've Dan here speaking today for us. Dan, you have about 40 minutes to do your thing. Thanks for joining us and go for it.
Thank you. Thank you, Mossy. Thank you, everybody, for being here. My name is Dan, and I'm an alcoholic. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay.
Lovely.
And I'll do this in two parts. First part is to give you a scan of my life. And the second part is how I'm staying sober today. And when I have less than 40 minutes, I usually just do the second part. But so thank you for inviting me to reflect on who I am and what I'm here for. I was born in San Francisco, California in May 1939, a month after the first printing of the first edition of the Big Book was made back east. So I'll be 86 in 3 weeks from now. I took my last drink in Washington, D.C. On December 8th, 1976, after having attended my first AA meeting the day before Pearl Harbor Day in a meeting held in the office building near the White House. So I am enjoying 48 years of sobriety. Been sober over half my life and over half AA's life. I'm very grateful for AA. I'm the grandson of 4 migrants to the United States. My father's parents, my father was John Lawrence Flynn, and his parents, Mike Flynn and Ann Clark, were born in County Leitrim, Ireland in 1854. And Dad was born in San Francisco in 1882. So he was 57 when I was born in 1939. My mom was born in Davis, West Virginia in 1899 to 2 German immigrants, Theodor Stumpf and Marie Schwarzinger. And she was 40 when I was born, 17 years younger than Dad. I learned later in life that I inherited alcoholism from both sides of my family. My mother's father, Theodor Stumpf, was a raging German alcoholic who her mom, Maria, and her 2 brothers, Alphonse and Bruno, abandoned in Montana in 1920. And when I was growing up, I asked Mom, "Where's your dad?" And she said, "Oh, he died before you were born." And it was a lie. She had wiped him out of her mind. And Dad died when I was 10 years old. It was a great loss. It was a significant loss. But I had the first phases of my life were these. The first phase, the glorious beginnings in San Francisco. The second phase, disillusionment. The third phase, awakening into AA and beyond. And the fourth phase, in which I'm at now, that of service. I grew up in a beautiful place in the world, and today I'm very grateful for it. I grew up overlooking this, in a beautiful home with a bar room, and I was never attracted to alcohol in my beginnings. I had an Irish conservative Roman Catholic beginnings in San Francisco, and I was very successful My pictures were in the newspaper and all the newspapers in my senior year at St. Ignatius High, because I had was president of the San Francisco Youth Association, and I loved the life I was having. I've been an athlete all my life. First 25 years a tennis player, in sobriety 34 years of long distance running. I love being athletic, and but today I continue to do many things. But one of the highlights of my high school, St. Ignatius High School, was that senior retreat, a nation retreat. And you can't see it well. It's in an article in a Friends Quarterly, a quarterly magazine, the British Quakers, is the current issue. And I just have to laugh at life. But basically, my first 20 years, I learned obedience. And I was obedient to the commandments and what the church wanted me to do. And then I started to lose faith in the church in university. I went to Santa Clara University down the peninsula, a Jesuit university. And in my sophomore year, I was very depressed. And I read Thomas Merton's Seven-Story Mountain. I didn't see alcohol as a solution. I never identify with the heavy drinking guys. There was one wonderful guy, Gary Leahy, in here, who doing this retreat in this Jesuit retreat house south of San Francisco. He had hidden a case of beer in the bushes, and he invited me to join the guys to go out for drinking. I never was attracted to that. But in my 20s, in university, I was trained to kill. I was in reserve officer training course, and I was miserable at bayonet training. I didn't have them in my heart to kill, but I was trained to kill. And I was trained to prove the existence of God. And both of those are irrelevant to my life today. But, I've been taken care of by a power greater than me, but I didn't realize it until years later, and when I was 37 and I crash landed in AA. The second period of my life came because I got into an early marriage in 1962, but the military service was a shocker. I saw red-blooded American university graduates doing things that I was told that if I even thought about doing, I would burn in hell forever. Sandy Beach used to be fun. I knew Sandy Beach, and God bless him. I even dated his third wife, and but he used to say he was guilty before he ever did everything, and God bless him. God bless the guy. I never was attracted to alcohol, but I began to realize I was missing some basic information about life, and everybody else in the world seemed to have a good time. So I went to Georgetown University graduate school in the mid-60s to study philosophy, learn the meaning of life, but I didn't find anything out about the meaning of life, but I did find out about the pleasure of a glass of wine at supper. And over the next 13 years, slowly, through the back door came this dependency on alcohol that then didn't end until 13 years later. And it destroyed my first marriage of 14 years and my first life. There's two kids out of that first marriage. One is a 62-year-old daughter who thinks the same as I did, but I do now. But she's been able to manage her life and her mother's anger against me. Her mother, I'm not going to get into her mother's behavior, but she's been able to manage her anger, and I highly respect her, but cannot have a relationship with her except to like her brilliant postings on Facebook. And a son who got married, has 3 children who are now adults. Kate and I are going to take the train down to Milan in May and meet with them. So I maintain weekly contact with my son. So in AA, I crash landed in the Young People Circuit in Washington, D.C. And my first month in BYOL, Bring Your Own Lunch, in an office building a couple of blocks from the White House. And I immediately knew I was home. I plunged into the Young People Circuit in Washington, D.C. And my first sponsor was actually a dirty old man who was chasing women till the day he died, 26 years sober. But he lived the page 132 of the big book. We absolutely insist on enjoying life. I had to get a more spiritual sponsor. In fact, I've outlived 5 of the 6 sponsors I've had, and the 6th one who's has comments in one of the Grapevine books I've discovered is still around, but she says she's too on in years to be of any service. My last sponsor, Max McCarthy, former congressman and diplomat from Buffalo, New York, and very proud of his 100% Irish heritage, died of Lou Gehrig's disease. Very sad, but he was my last sponsor, and we had great fun together. Great fun together. And as I said, I knew Sandy Beach, but I found I plunged into AA, and so that began my 3rd part of my life, awakening. And I did everything that AA suggested. I even went back to my religion of origin and found that wanting. And those years of awakening, I also, but I always stayed close to AA no matter what I was up to. I did service as many meetings as I could. I always kept reading. I've read all 7 books that AA has published of Bill and Bob's writings. I wince when I hear somebody say the book. My home group is the first 164 YP online group. It's 16 years old. It was the first online voice meeting out of Europe, started by a young people's liaison officer for Continental European Region, Dallas T, in Milan. And I hosted, he said, I joined the 3rd meeting. He said, Dan, I'm going out of town. This was January 2009. Dan, I'm going out of town. Would you host for me? And he never really came back. He's still sober today in LA. And I've been hosting that meeting for 16 years. And now and through those 16 years, I've seen a lot happen. It's a very healthy meeting. We just addressed our major challenge with Microsoft Teams going to guillotine Skype on May 5th. And we had a brilliant group conscience meeting a week ago Monday, in which we chose Zoom, and 2 technical people who are going to carry us into Zoom, like you guys, like Mossy started in 2014. So I believe in my recovery is well. Let me get to the service or the recovery part, the service part, and what I'm in the service part of my recovery, but I use all of AA literature, and I have a sheet of 20 quotations that I've developed over the years of the things that motivate me the most. But to lower it down, when I usually talk for 20 minutes, I say, what words are keeping you sober today? And so here are my 5 words and 2 expressions. The words are choose on page 12. Why don't you choose your own conception? Page 12 of the big book. Why don't you choose your own conception of God? This is something was never offered in my upbringing, to choose my own conception of God. And it was only later in life, as in recent years, that I learned about Marguerite Porete, a Beguine lay nun in France, who wrote a book, Simple Mirror of Souls, who said we all have a direct contact with love, with God, and God is love. And in those days, there was 2 things wrong with that. You couldn't have a direct contact with God without going through a priest. And 2, you can't have a woman writing those kinds of things. So she was burned at the stake in 1310 in Paris. Where did I learn from that? From Villegas Jaeger. Today I do translations. I do translations from French, German, Italian, and Spanish into English. And Villagis Jaeger was a Benedictine priest, a Benedictine monk who became a certified Zen Buddhist teacher, and he was a scientist. And consequently, the Vatican silenced him, but not his order. And he wrote a book, Jenseits von God, Beyond God. And in there, I learned about Marguerite Perret. And I'm grateful for AA. I'm grateful that Bill didn't drink until his 20s, because later on, I learned that a couple of things about ourselves. Our brain takes the longest of any animal, and we're animals, to develop. It takes 25 years when it hits its peak. And those who don't drink until that point and near that point, their brains are fairly developed. And that's what happened to Bill. And I also learned that an athlete's peak, being an athlete all my life, physically is around 30 years. And so I try to maintain my fitness as best I can, and I try to maintain my brain as best I can. But as we all know in this room, aging has its inevitability. Desire is my next word. Page 562 of the fourth edition. Third tradition. The only requirement from AA membership is the desire to stop drinking. And that's the great equality tradition for me. In my sobriety, I went to a highly successful international corporate human resources career, using all the principles of the program, the principles behind the steps, the principles behind the traditions, the principles behind the concepts. And I could, by the time Bill wrote the concepts in his third decade of sobriety, I could see the brilliance of his business acumen. But desire was real bad when I had booze in me. Desire never got me into trouble before I started putting booze in me, because I followed the Catholic Church line and didn't have sex until I got married. And when I went in the military and found out that all my classmates down in basic training went across the border to Ciudad Juarez to have sex with prostitutes, except me and another young soldier officer, I was pissed. I said, something's wrong with my education. And it doesn't matter now. I am happier than I would have ever been. And I'm a lucky man to be living so long. Kate's my third wife, as I said. I had to learn about women, because when my dad died when I was 10, that was a turning point in my life that I didn't realize. And there were no men in my life to teach me about women, sex, and earning a living. So I turned towards two young Jesuit scholastics at St. Ignatius High School in San Francisco. And they were mentors for me their entire lives. But the interesting thing, and I've said this in this Quaker magazine I wrote all this in, it's in current print. I wrote, both these guys left the Jesuits, and each one got married 5 times, each one. And Kate said, Kate has met them both before they died. Kate said they just didn't learn how to date. They had taken vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience. And today I laugh at it all. And today I know that desire, I became a Cambridge certified teacher of English in 1997. I was so successful in my career, I took the Cambridge course to teach English as a second language to adults throughout the world. And I learned from that desire is a chief factor in being able to learn a second language. And desire is, today for me, desire is whatever created me calls me to do, especially when I practice the 3 faculties that we human beings have, that booze took away from me. The 3 faculties that we human beings have, that nothing else in creation has that we know of so far. The first faculty is the ability to listen and observe without judgment. We can't listen and observe without reaction, but we can listen and observe without judgment. Who said that? Viktor Frankl, who survived the prison camps and went on to right man search for meaning, and said, between stimulus and our response as humans, there's always a tiny moment when we have choice of our response. And he's been an influence in lately in my sobriety. And so desire without booze in me is good. The other two faculties that we have as human beings without booze in us is intuition. Physically, our brain operates with sensations and reasons with sensations, but there's something in us humans that's called intuition, inspiration, intuition, that comes from power greater than us. And the third faculty is to choose positive. We always have a choice. C.S. Lewis, who became a Catholic, did a series of radio broadcasts, BBC radio broadcasts during the Blitz, which became a book called Mere Christianity. And he said in it, he gave me the best explanation of evil. He said, if there wasn't what we perceive to be evil in the world, we wouldn't have free will. Now, this time he called it free will. I call it free choice. And then 13 years ago, I went to my first British Quaker meeting, and Kate and I've been joined in Brussels, and now we're members in Westminster meeting in London, which was recently broken into by the Metropolitan Police, but that's a separate story. And I believe in the ability to choose positive. The young, restless, irritable, and discontented man called George Fox of the West Midlands of England in 1650, he said, walk cheerfully over the land and respond to that of God and everyone. And he wrote, he asked God, why are you giving me the need to know the evils that men do? And God responded, so that you can see the light that will shine on the evils and conquer it. That's George Fox's way. It was George Fox's way. So we have a choice. Enjoy. Page 132 of the big book. I always underline that when I get to sign a book that's going to be giving to a newcomer in a countdown in the convention. One of the things that saddens me greatly is when people focus on their defects, because that's what the big book says. But at my point and your point in sobriety, Bill went far beyond it. And page 21 of As Bill Sees It, which was the 5th book published of Bill's writings in his lifetime, at page 21, he says, I know that you are expected at some point to do more than just carry the message of AA to alcoholics. In AA, we aim not only for sobriety, we try again to become citizens of the world that we rejected and of the world that once rejected us. This is the ultimate demonstration toward which the 12-step work is the first, but not the final step. And he gave praise to the third line of the 12-step, which I did many years ago. Practice these principles in all our affairs. And when I have sponsees who call me and bitching about this, bitching about that, I said, what are you going to do positive about that? And for me, early on when I was a kid, we used to have an old RCA Victrola, wind-up Victrola, and I played one of the 78 RPMs, and it was The Secret of Success by a motivational speaker in the United States named Earl Nightingale. And you can still hear him, had a wonderful baritone voice. And the record we had of his was The Secret of Success. And he dragged you through the entire record. What is the secret of success? And at the end he says, and this he took from the Stoics and the ancients, he said, the secret of success is life becomes what we think it is. We become what we think we are. So one of the bazillion ways I stay sober is I'm someone who doesn't drink alcohol. And I also envision what I want to be. And today in this part of life, for the past 10 years, I've been leading this workshop in mostly Quakers, but also in AA, the AA Dar Dens Convention, 3 times under the line, we absolutely enjoy, under the AA conference approved line, we absolutely enjoy life. I say, here's how I do that. And I've been leading that ever since. And the next one is practice, page 60 of the big book. Practice these principles in all our affairs. As an athlete, I know I can't grab success. What I can do is practice how I envision what I want. I desire what I want, and I practice behaviors that lead me to what I want. What I learned from AA is I imitate behaviors of people who have what I want. Imitation is where I get. So I listen to your stories, and I listen to the stories of anyone who's staying sober, and I put that away. And I listen to the complaints of those who aren't, and I just pray for those people, because I imitate successful people in and out of AA. Imitation. And then that's what I did in sports. I imitated others in sports. I listened to them. And I'm grateful because I practice relaxed, repetitive practice of spiritual principles in all my affairs. I started with the principles underlying the 12 steps, but today I have 25 principles that I seek to practice. And I'll be happy to send anyone any of this material if I could send it to Mossy or somebody to distribute, or I can put my email in the chat box after this is over. The principles underlying the steps, but I started with those 12 principles, and today it's 25. The first, and I've translated it all into French, Italian, Spanish, German, and I had two Dutch people translated it into Dutch, and they got an argument between the two of them on one of the translation. But the first 5 are silence. I practice silence. Second, humility. What is humility? I don't know. But I can learn from others. Equality is my third one. I can learn from all of you. Which reminds me, there's that expression, terminal uniqueness in AA. That only applies to one thing, alcoholism. I'm not unique in regards to my alcoholism. I'm equal to every one of you, but I'm unique in everything else. No one has lived my life, and no one has lived your life except you. And that's why, for me, I love the AA sponsorship brochure from AA World Services in New York, which says in the introduction, Bill and Bob, no, it says sponsor and sponsored meet as equals, just as Bill and Bob did. So no matter what your path in life, we are all equal as human beings. And I can learn from you. I learn by speaking, and I hope you can take something from this, but practice, take what you need, leave the rest. So silence, humility, equality, compassion, and community. I need community. Bill and Bob and the pioneers, because Bill said he and Bob hated to be called founders. The pioneers of AA hit it spot on that says it's a we program. And the last, and in the middle of this is listening and observing without judgment and intuition. The last 4 are hope, courage, love, which took me a long time to put that in because love and gratitude. So I start with silence and end with gratitude. I had trouble with 3 words when I crash landed in AA in Pearl Harbor Day 76 in Washington. Faith, love, and God. My religion of birth and my experience growing up in America post-war, World War II, ruined those three words for me. Today, I don't have faith. Faith is irrelevant unless I practice it. I don't use the word God. I take the invitation from page 12 of the big book from Ebby Thatcher. Get your own. Why don't you choose your own conception of God? Today, one of my most influential people that I'm reading is Consuelo Martin, a wonderful Spanish professor who passed away a couple of years ago. She wrote a book, Vivir en Espíritu y en Verdad, Live in the Spirit and Truth. And she said, everything is temporary, except us as a temporary spark of the eternal. So today, the first question in this book is, who am I? I get participant asked, and I used to describe, well, I'm a man, a former executive, and husband. Today, I say I'm a temporary spark of the universe with choice. And what happens when I die, I don't know. I'm not given that ability to know. But one of the things I do is I do service in the Quakers. I'm a trustee for Quaker Action on Alcohol and Drugs, a registered charity in England, Wales. And we recently heard a wonderful talk by the executive director of Action Ireland, Alcohol Action Ireland. I can't remember her name, but it was lovely. Taking on the big boys like Guinness. I'm so grateful, but I do service like that, and I learn a lot. I'm also do service with the Quaker Universalist group, and the Quaker Universalist group has a wonderful saying that we accept people of all faiths or none, and so I'm on the conference planning committee, and next week, and Kate and I will be at the annual gathering, British Quaker Universalist group. And this year it's all women speakers. And the topic is women's spiritual voices. Because last year it was 3 old white men from England and one middle-aged African man from Africa. And you have to just laugh at life. I'm like Thich Nhat Hanh. At the end of the day, he said, I say thank you and have a good belly laugh. Let's see, back to the words. Intuitively, in page 84 of the big book, we will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. This is something I didn't get out of religion. This is something I got out of the spirituality of Bill Wilson. And Bill Wilson got, the steps are written in religious language because that's all he had to go on. He didn't get sober in AA. He got sober in Frank Bookman's, as a Swiss-German Lutheran minister born in Pennsylvania, his Oxford group. And today, one of the 5 groups I do service in is the Initiatives of Change, which is what the Oxford group is called today, but it's dying out. And so, as are the Quakers, British Quakers. The evangelical Quakers from the U.S. took Quakerism to Kenya, and Kenya has more Quakers than any country in the world, but they sing and dance. British Quakers sit in silence. Intuitively know, and that's a strong one to me, because intuition is not something we humans have that booze killed in me, because booze gave me a false impressions. So I'm so glad. 2 expressions in the 12 Steps in True Tradition that I love. Chapter 6, the bottom line, and I have that in here. I quote William Griffith Wilson. I say, who's that? Nobody knows who William Griffith Wilson is. Abandoned limited objectives. Wow. It took me 19 years to see that in the 12 and 12. So I reread all AA literature of people when they're willing to. Today I'm rereading As Bill Sees It with 2 guys. And the other one from the 12 and 12 is in chapter 3, the acid test. The acid test, does it work? Does what we think work? And that's what I love about AA. It's a practical spiritual program, down to earth, which invites us to keep our 2 feet on the ground. Let me run quickly for you through my 20 quotations. And page 85 of the big book, we're not cured of alcoholism. All we have is a daily reprieve based on the contingent on the maintenance of our spiritual condition. That was written when Bill was 3.5 years sober. If I would rewrite that today, it would be more than just maintain my spiritual practice. But Bill admitted, he only wrote drafted that big book. He didn't write it, he drafted it. And as we all know, AA Central Office in New York, they'll inform me in their booklet, 400 copies of that last draft was sent out to people. 300 went to non-alcoholics, and 100 went to the supposed 100 members. Marty Mann got a copy from her psychiatrist, Dr. Harry Tivu, and I have a copy of Marty Mann's wonderful book. I just bought it. It's a wonderful to read about her. So second is practice these principles in all our affairs. We're willing to grow along spiritual lines. We claim spiritual progress. We're in the spiritual perfection, page 60 of Alcoholics Anonymous. I think it was William Scarborough's book that Bill purposely put that in there because he absolutely did not want Frank Bookman's 4 absolutes. Thank God he didn't, because I wouldn't have stayed sober if they had to follow 4 absolutes. 3, the spiritual life is not a theory. We have to live it. 4, my 4th one is get your own conception of God. 5, page 10 of the 12 and 12, page 110 of the 12 and 12. When we are willing to place spiritual growth first, then and only then do we have a real chance. 6, from the 12 steps and 12th tradition, the wonderful chapter 12. When a man or woman has a spiritual awakening, the most important of it is that they have become to do things which they could not do before on their unaided strength. 7, going it alone in spiritual matters is dangerous. I've seen that happen. The one I just said, it still has to meet the acid test. How well does it actually work? The Serenity Prayer in the we form at the end of the 12th step in the 12 and 12. It was in the I form in chapter 3. AA's office got it from Reinhold Niebuhr, the popular Protestant theologian, in the we form, but somebody in the office changed it to I form. And later reading of mine, the Tibetan Buddha, I forget what, some guy said, he traced it back to Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic. And William James, who's quoted twice by Bill Wilson in the big book, was a Stoic, and he pissed off his Christian father. William James, and Henry James was the great novelist whose books I never could read. But William James, Varieties of Religious Experience, breakthrough book. What he did, the magic of his book was he let people speak. And that's the magic of AA. They let people speak. None of us tells anyone else what to do. I have a conservative a friend in AA who voted for Trump, God bless him, but we don't talk about Trump. But I told him there's no we must in the big book, or you must. There's no you must. He says, yes, there are. I'm going to find them. And if there was, I wouldn't have listened to him. But we're still friends. In chapter 10 of the 12 and 12, it's a spiritual axiom that every time we are disturbed, no matter what the cause, there's something wrong with us. And that came from the Varieties of Religious Experience, as well as Bill's notion of higher power. And then there's the abandoned limit objectives. We recovered, and it would be false. 20th anniversary of AA would be a false pride to believe that Alcoholics Anonymous is a cure-all for anything, even for alcoholism. Let us constantly remind ourselves that the experts in religion are the clergy, the practice of medicine, physicians, and we, the recovered alcoholics, are their assistants. Beautiful. And then my biggest one is the Language of Heart, which is the 25th anniversary article that Bill wrote in the Grapevine. He said, no single one of us or any single group of us alcoholics got together to invent Alcoholics Anonymous. Dr. Bob had often deplored being called co-founders. We might review for a moment the basic tenets, ideas from which our recovery is founded, and then ask ourselves where these ideas came from. And he details Dr. Silkworth, his own doctor, William James, Dr. Samuel Shoemaker. But he said the missing link was fully forged. Somehow we knew this at once, to those wonderful friends in the Oxford group in Akron, Ohio, who brought Dr. Bob and me within reach of recovery. Our debt is quite beyond calculation. And I love all literature, and it was probably either in the Dr. Bob's biography or Bill Wilson's biography published posthumously, where Bob, the first thing that Bill says to Bob was, boy, you look like you needed to drink. And you need a drink. And Bob wrote later, that guy immediately put me at ease. He was the first guy that didn't preach to me. He knew what he was talking about. And Bob had said, I'll give this bum 15 minutes, and I'm getting goosebumps as I say this. They went on, they went on to talk 5 hours. And we're sober today because, but we're the last book that AA has published of Bill's writings. I recommend it highly. I almost didn't buy it. Our Great Responsibility. His talks of the General Service Conference. It's our responsibility to carry this goddamn thing further. But I don't limit my sobriety to AA, as you see. Sobriety, AA is the foundation of my life. I draw on anything that works. I draw on anything that works. I do 5 volunteer work in the Quakers, in AA, in Doctors Without Borders, in a consortium of 11 charities in the African Great Lakes region, and in Initiative Change, which is what Frank Bookman's Oxford group is called today. And that keeps me sober. It's communities of like-minded people taking action based on spiritual and moral principles. I think my time is up. God love you all. Thank you for this opportunity to share my experience, strength, and hope, continued success, and one day at a time in your adventure called Sobriety in your life. God bless you.
Thank you, Dan. You stirred up a lot there. I'm blessed to be sitting here sober today. I was up today at my sponsor's grave with my daughter and 2 of my friends. And it just blows me away that I'll be forever grateful for what Alcoholics Anonymous has done for me. I absolutely love being sober. But I lived the big book today. I'll be forever grateful for what Alcoholics Anonymous has done for me. I love being sober. I love having the crack. I love having a smile on my face, and I love transferring that to other people.
Thank you, Dan. Some of it went over my head because I'm not an educated person. You know, I take what I need and I leave the rest because that keeps my head running properly. But I love the choices. You brought up choices, and that's what I mean in that. That's what means for me in AA. I have a choice of what I do, you know, and listen to learn. They used to say, Mick, learn to listen to learn. And that was hard for me because I was always all over the place, you know. And as you say, you know, it's what other people do attracts me. You know, if I like what you have, I will talk to you. I will find out how you done it, and I will practice trying. If it works, then great. If it doesn't, okay, that's fine as well. Because that's how I've learned to grow in this fellowship, you know, by practicing on a daily basis of what we do. Mossy, I better mute myself. It's okay.
Yeah.
I was just going to say we've come to the end of the sharing part of the meeting, and Katrina's going to read the promises. But before that, of course, we've got to thank the people that's been in service here. The speaker, the host, timekeeper, and everyone.
There you have it all done, Mick. Go ahead with the promises there, Katrina.
Okay, thanks so much, everybody. I am Katrina, and I am an alcoholic. And here are the 8 promises. If we are painstaking about this phase of our development, we will be amazed before we are halfway through. We're going to know new freedom and a new happiness. We will not regret the past, nor wish to shut the door on it. We will comprehend the word serenity, and we will know peace. No matter how far down the scale we have gone, we will see how our experience can benefit others. That feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. We will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. Self-seeking will slip away. Our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. Fear of people and of economic insecurity will leave us. We will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. We will suddenly realize that God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves. Are these extravagant promises? We think not. They are being fulfilled among us, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. They will always materialize if we work for them. Thank you.
Thanks, Katrina. Just things are changing around for next week. Where are we? Next week we have our old timers meeting is going to be run off the Canaries meeting. So our old timers meeting is going to be next week is going to be at 6:45 to 8 p.m. And we're going to have 2 old timer speakers speaking. One of them is going to be, she shared for us before, she's a young lady, 69 years sober. Absolutely amazing message. There was another lady I was trying to get, but she's speaking for somebody else. Unfortunately, I left it too long. But I live another old timer as well there. As you know, next weekend the convention is on, so everything kind of changes except for the Step 11 meditation meeting on Sunday. We will be online for all day Friday, Friday evening, all day Saturday and Sunday until about 3 o'clock, 2 or 3 o'clock. And this meeting is on every Saturday except next Saturday, it's change of time. We're online every morning at 8 o'clock. Our meeting starts 8:30 to 9:30. We've a 1 o'clock Step 11 meditation meeting on a Sunday. Thursday evening we've a 7:30 to 8:30 meeting. And there's one missing, isn't there? Thursday evening, I said Thursday evening. That's it. Anyway, guys, stick around for fellowship after the meeting if you want the breakout room. We'll look after that afterwards. And the yellow card, Mick. Who you see here?
What you hear here,
When you leave here.
let it stay here.
And chat will be enabled as we end the meeting with this friendly prayer. Again, Dan, thanks again for joining us. Lead us off with this friendly prayer, Dan, and we'll all go home and have our dinner.
God,
God grant us
the serenity to
Accept
to
accept
accept the
the
things we cannot change.
courage
Please change things we can, and know the truth. Thank you
Thank
so
you all
much,
for a
Dan.
lovely meeting. Thank you again, Joe. That was lovely.